I've had a hankering to talk about notebooks. It started because I wanted to personally call out the notebook I've been using for the last year, which is by DesignWorks Inc. with a K. It lies about how many pages it has. It says it has 144 pages, but actually this is the 144 page mark. It has 288 pages, and I don't know, it's been very weird for me this year. Like, I've never, as we'll go into, I'm not that good about keeping to one notebook until I fill it up, but like I was really trying to, and I just kept going through it, and like it was never full, and like I just didn't think it was possible that I couldn't fill up 144 pages in a year. And like I felt like I was being gaslighted by the notebook. Like, as time went on, I was like, this has to be longer than 144 pages, but like I was like, they wouldn't lie, and like the pages aren't numbered. So eventually I had to go through it and just like laboriously count out all the pages. And so sorry, I'm sick. It got to the point where I realized that it was a big lie. And I don't think I've ever bought another notebook where pages were defined as sheets. Like, that isn't what pages are. Anyway, as I went over my notebooks, I expected to find sort of a clear narrative. Like, this I thought was an exception because it's a soft notebook, and it's obviously, my situation with notebooks is I feel that notebooks that are soft, as pretty as they may sometimes be and as expensive as they may sometimes be, they can't really deal with the level of abuse that my notebooks experience. If I put them in my backpack all the time and I'm like writing in them like this and stuff, like they're going to fall apart. Like, this notebook is a mess and it's had to be taped together and stuff, but I bought it because it was pretty. And also, something I do think is great about it is that it has like these months and days so that you can like date it really easily by just circling things. So that's kind of convenient. Anyway, I thought I was going to find this sort of linear narrative that would have started with me using composition books when I was younger, and then mostly moved on to using paper blanks, basically from ages like 16 to like 25, and then mostly switching to like cheaper notebooks like this. This is a Blue Line, which I guess is my #1 notebook brand, and then record books, which I also love. And I guess my thesis was going to be, like, the more expensive and fancy a notebook is, the worse it is as a notebook. And like, I still think this is true. But like, when I actually looked at my notebooks and I basically have all the notebooks that I've had since college, so I have like 8 years of notebooks. There's some others, like this is like about half of them, I guess. So I looked at them, there's many of them, more than I should have, and I ended up realizing that I've actually gone back and forth between notebooks like a lot. Like, even if I'm trying to commit to one brand and I know that it's the best kind, like, I can't resist getting notebooks that are too expensive or just like a huge mess and like not a good notebook, just because they're either pretty or I have this idea that if I get a new kind of notebook, my whole life would be different. This I think definitely goes into the Hall of Fame as the worst notebook that I have. Everything about this is terrible. It was in 2014. I don't have that many memories of writing in it, but it must have been horrible. I mean, imagine trying to write in this, like, at a coffee shop. Like, oh, look, it doesn't even, like, lay flat. So I would have had to have it open like this, like a freak. It is not lined. I bet the only thing this was even slightly good for was writing songs, because, like, at least I would be, like, at home, sitting on the floor. But, like, the idea of trying to, like, write in this notebook anywhere is absurd. It is by Alexander Henry, which I haven't been able to find a website for. But I used to buy Alexander Henry notebooks when I lived in Cincinnati at the Half Price Books. And obviously I just bought them because the covers are so pretty, because, like, there's no other reason to have a notebook like this. Everything about it is awful. I had some other Alexander Henry notebooks, which are these, which, like, I was looking back on fondly. Like, they are hard, they're sturdy, which is cool, and they're pretty, and they're small, which can be kind of convenient. But then I looked at them, and they're only lined on one side. Which I guess I could see if you're a certain type of person, maybe you like draw and write, but like that's not useful for me. So it was really funny that I was like remembering how great they were, and then I like actually went back and looked at it, and I was remembering that I would like, you know, be writing something, and then I'd always have to go over to the other side and like awkwardly write on unlined paper in little clumps. But you know, I'm sure this was pretty cheap. Let me see if any of them still have the price on. I really like this one with the fish. Nope, it's a mystery. But I feel like they were pretty cheap. So there's like really a lot to recommend these. However, I can't really recommend them because all I know is that the Cincinnati Half Price Books used to sell them because they don't have a website. I'm sure if you like Googled Alexander Henry, you could like find notebooks that look like that, but I can't really like point you towards how to research them super well. There's good stuff about them though, except for this monster. I'm just ashamed of myself for even owning it. Like, I feel like I had kind of repressed it. I got out all the other notebooks, and then as I was falling asleep, I just remembered the horrible notebook. Anyway, I'll try to be more chronological. So when I was a kid, I used composition books most of the time because I really liked Harriet the Spy, and that's how I got into writing stories and journaling a lot and stuff. Ooh, my friend Rachel and I were talking about this video, and she talked about college-ruled notebooks, you know, how she doesn't like wide-ruled notebooks, which I definitely agree with. For me, actually, I prefer, I think this might, like record books and stuff like this, I'm trying to find a blank page, they, to me, feel even a little bit narrower, which I like. And then, I really like using like graph paper. I guess it depends on the person, but I think graph paper can be kind of nice if you write small, and that you can like make charts or do other things with the paper, which is pretty useful. I have been considering getting the Princeton Architectural Press notebooks because they look really pretty. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but I think they're basically made for people who are really sentimental about graph paper notebooks, and apparently they like alternate between graph paper and like lots of other kinds of grids. But when I actually like looked at them in person, I felt like a lot of the pages like would be impossible to write on. So it's like you're basically sacrificing being able to use all the pages in a notebook just for the excitement of like having weird graphs on every page. That's just what I think though. Ooh, this is a different composition book. It's a decomposition book. Ironically, when I was in college, my roommate Laura would make decomposition books, as she called them, by just cutting composition books in half. So, yeah, in my early 20s, I also tried doing this. I made this one, and let's see. I decorated it with these pictures of really comfortable looking jackets, just as kind of a divider for sections. Yeah, so that's pretty cool. But then Decomposition Books became an actual company, and they make really pretty notebooks. I think I definitely get why I liked composition books as a kid, but I feel like the lines are very faint, which can be a little bit annoying to me. Like if you're trying to write and it's like dark or something. They're also like very large. Like I'm not a fan of tiny notebooks, but this just seems like unnecessarily large. Like if you were trying to write on a table while you were eating, I don't know. But, you know, composition books, there's nothing wrong with them, and they're very cheap. They also make these little decomposition books, which I sometimes use to make like schedules in and write notes to myself, but you know, spiral notebooks for me are just like an accident waiting to happen. They very quickly fall apart if you are rough with them, as opposed to hardback notebooks, which are just like power bottoms. I mean, I don't think anything bad could happen in this notebook. It's clearly like been through a lot of shit, but it just, you know, hasn't even started to fray or need to be taped up or anything. Anyway, so I used composition books when I was a teenager. I also really liked the really, really big, like, I don't know, school notebooks, like the 3 subject books. Like, I remember excitedly buying them, and like not for school, just to like write stories and journal it and stuff. And it was like, this section is for stories, this is for journaling, this is for like a specific writing project, and this is for obsessively writing song lyrics because I'm on ADHD medication and I don't have ADHD, so I'm just tweaking out. But like now I'm like, those notebooks were massive. Like, I guess when you're in school, maybe you're just less concerned about like, being able to write on the go. But I'm just like, how could I possibly have like written in those notebooks? They're just so large. Anyways, then when I was about 17, I discovered paper blanks, which I really have kind of gone off of in the last few years, like I'm going to go into, but like they're really great. So they come in all different kinds of designs. There's a lot of them that are much more like representational than this and have more pictures, but I guess that's just not really been my style for a while. Here is a smaller one, which is really pretty. Yeah, so there's really cool things about these. I think this is like the point when I got really sentimental about notebooks and started to kind of see notebooks as like my temporary home, because they have these pockets, so I could just keep stuff in there. And they have, really pretty end papers, which I think in the early days of paper blanks, the end papers were like a somewhat different color than this, and it was like easier to write visibly on them. So like I would like write quotes that I wanted to remember, or if I had just like a special moment with a friend or something, I would get them to like write something in my notebook commemorating it or whatever. So that was really, I just got really stuck on paper blanks, and I think with many exceptions, because obviously I just cheat on my notebooks all the time and just switch from notebook to notebook before I'm done because I'm a monster. Like, with many exceptions, it's like been mostly paper blanks for like the last 2 years of high school and like all the time that I was in college and years after that. Yeah, so it got to the point, for a while I got really fussed about wanting to keep track of like how I was feeling every day, which may seem like a practical thing, but it really wasn't, because for years I had this weird like code system that I'd come up with to like keep track of how I was feeling, if I was in any pain. I have chronic pain, so like I'm always in pain, so this is really a waste of time. But I had this whole thing where every time I got a new paper blanks notebook, oh, and I'm just gonna note, as an older person, a few years later, I think the lining in these notebooks is freaking awful. I can't believe that I liked it. It seems just like very like, I'm just gonna compare it to a different notebook. Yes, it's like compared to like graph paper or something. Like these lines are just like overly wide and light. And like the paper is like nice or whatever, but like I don't really care about paper quality when I'm trying to write, as long as it's not like so thin that you can see through it, which I do think is the case for like recycled paper notebooks. I want to support the environment, but I hate them. Yeah, so yeah, I don't, now that I'm looking at it, this seems very annoying to write on, as much as I like other things about the notebooks. Anyway, every time I got a new paper blanks notebook, I would get my labels, I'd put the labels in it, and I would like, I'd write the dates of like every day for months, and then like every day I would have to like fill in how I was doing and junk. Like there's just like years of this, which is kind of frustrating because I'd like to be able to show what the insides of the notebooks are like, but I ruined all the ones that I had. Oh well. Oh, this also is just like the most expensive notebook I've ever bought. It's also paper blanks, but it doesn't fold up. It's got this, which like, why? Like, I remember buying this, and even though I used to buy more expensive notebooks back then, because this is from like 2012 or something, I just was like ashamed of myself. Like, I was embarrassed to tell anyone how much money I had spent on this. I feel like it was like $30 or $40, and like, why? Yeah, so that's my thesis basically, that a lot of the time cheap notebooks can be just as good, and specifically the kind of notebook that you might buy in like like a hardware store or like Staples or Office Max or something, and like not where it says like journals and they have like the pretty notebooks. Just like with notebooks that it says are like business notebooks or notebooks for like record keeping or whatever, like they're just so hardy, and like, I don't know, for me it just kind of, there's something satisfying about like writing in a record book. I'm trying to see if I have any of the ones that have columns. I definitely found that I did. Yeah, here's a 2-column one. This product contains chemicals known to cause cancer, birth defects, or other reproductive harm. Yeah, so this is like fine to write on. It does have these weird columns, but it just makes the writing more exciting, I think. So, where was I? Well, first of all, I have noticed whenever I look at my old notebooks, there are always times when I got dumb notebooks. Like this one is dumb. It's from Claire Fontaine. It's not the worst. Like, it looks like it didn't fall apart in the time I was using it, but I don't think I was using it very long. It's got like a lot of blank pages. But it's pretty, but it's just like, and like you can see it did get like wrinkled and stuff. It's ripply already. And like the lines are very broad and it's like, why? But I just couldn't resist it. Oh, also, this is Peter Popper. I just want to share this because I think, you know, in some ways it's a bit like paper blanks. It's very pretty and sturdy, and it's got also kind of nice paper, but thinner paper. It's got gold tips, so it kind of serves a need for a fancy notebook. And I think it's not really equivalent to paper blanks because it doesn't have the pocket and it doesn't have the, you know, magnetic cover that closes it, but it's pretty cool. Let's see. Anyways, where was I? Oh yeah. So I switched to this kind of notebook, blue line notebooks, or just any kind of record book. I feel like you can just decorate things with stickers and stuff, or you can decorate it by taping stuff onto it, which, like, you know, isn't the most, isn't something that really stands up to a lot of wear and it starts to peel off, but it's fun and it's free. So the point is, I just kind of switched to these because they're just so tough, and I really like that about them. And something really nice about blue line notebooks is they come with these stickers. So you can like take the stickers out and you can use them. I'm trying to find a good example. You can like keep track of things that you wrote, and you can like keep track of where they are in the notebook. So that's sweet. And then also for me, because I was doing that thing where I was like keeping track of how I was doing every day, I had this. You know, they have an index. So I don't know, I just think they're really great. Anyway, in 2016, I decided to turn over a new leaf, and instead of doing the really annoying thing where I kept track of how I was doing every day, which I did for a little while, but then I just quit it because I hate it, I got like a planner. So this was huge, and it fell apart, and I think that's just what I deserve for getting something so big. You know, this might be the most expensive notebook I've ever gotten. I get with like a planner because like it's for a specific year and stuff. I kind of get why it's so expensive. Anyway, I like the fact that it had a calendar, and so I started to use the calendar to keep track of how well I was following certain habits, which has like worked really well for me for the past few years. But like, I don't know. I think I would have thought I was getting better use out of it if I was using it to write stories and journal and stuff too. But even though it has all these pages, I just felt weird using them that way, because they have specific dates on them. So I don't know. Having this was a good experience, but I wouldn't get this notebook again. It is by Let's, I think, but I can't find the brand name anywhere. But I'm 99% sure that it's Let's. Anyways, 2017, also during that time I was like using a blue line notebook at the same time, but this is 2016. Where's my 2017 notebook? This is not it. Yes, it is. Okay. So this is this. I think I figured out that if I like having calendars, I can just take another calendar and just put it into my notebook. And then, like, I think with graph paper notebooks, you can just make so much stuff and, like, just put it in the notebook. Like, if you wanted to make schedules and stuff like that, you could just have that, and you don't need to buy a fancy notebook that has a calendar and schedule in it. It's kind of more fun to just make your own. Then you can make it exactly like you want. Anyways, so then I just, after going through all these processes and realizing that like the best notebooks are the ones that cost like $5 or $10 and are record books or are like just kind of simple hardcover notebooks, and they're better than like any of the fancy notebooks, I bought this fancy notebook, which was kind of expensive, and I think I've already described my problems with it. It fell apart, and it's twice as long as it says it is, and that's unfortunate. Yeah. So then I was going to get another graph paper notebook. Although I have noticed there's like a hardcover version of this, or like somewhat harder cover, but the spine is still kind of soft and springy, so I'm like, I don't know. Anyways, instead I impulsively bought this 6-column notebook that was like $5. It's shiny, so I just thought that was kind of fun. Yeah, I think it might be good for making schedules in, but it's going to be my 2019 notebook, so I haven't started it yet. So that's some of my thoughts about notebooks. Where would I advise buying notebooks if you live in San Francisco? I prefer to buy things in person so I can really look at them and like run my hands over them like a creep. At Cliff's Variety Store, if you've gone there, you may know there are 2 stores. There's the one that's kind of more like a hardware store and sells games and stuff, and then there's one that's more like a gift shop and also sells fabric and like art supplies. So this would be like the hardware store side. They don't have like a lot of notebooks or anything, but they have like a small selection of blue line notebooks, and it's mostly lined, but I think they also have like graph paper and like plain options and just a few other notebooks. It's kind of small. I think like Office Max or Staples can be cool. Like, you don't look in the journals, but you look in the record books and like the business notebooks. It's just really weird because they're like, I don't know, the ones that are labeled business notebooks are just so much better, or like black and red. I just don't really like the colors black and red, but I have to admit those are like quality looking notebooks. However, my favorite notebook store in San Francisco would be Gables, which is at Geary and 20th. When you first go in, you see gift shop type stuff and like gift shop type notebooks, but the further back in you go, you just feel like you're in somebody's like old garage full of like old notebooks and folders. And so in the very back, there's stuff like this and this on some kind of like dusty shelves, and you just kind of can go through all of it, and it's just like fantastic. Anyway, those are just some of my opinions about notebooks, and sorry I'm sick while I'm talking about this. I thought I'd be able to talk better than I was. The real problem is that now I have to put all of these away, and there's so many of them, and that's very annoying to me.